All right, we want to make a pivot from that to a segment that we do called Bloomberg Equality. Every week in the month of June, we've been diving into the impact of social equity and equality for companies and investors. And our next guest has an interesting perch. She trains thousands of young women for their first day in the workforce. And she says more than half of this year's graduating class is pessimistic about their chances in this labor market. Jennifer Openshaw joins us right now, the founder and chair of an organization called Girls with Impact. All right, Jen, it's always great to talk to you, though I'm a little alarmed by this survey here. Why is there so much pessimism? Is the idea that there just aren't jobs out there for these people?
Well, the next generation is feeling like it's much more competitive. Some companies are pulling back, as we know, others are not. But the big piece of data is that people who are in college and get personalized one-on-one help are much more likely to land a job, but yet only 1 in 5 students get that kind of help. And it's really sad, right? Very interestingly, I have wealthy families who come to me and they're looking to land their students in their next job. And what we see is students who come from networked and wealthy families are more likely to land that job. It is really important that they start thinking earlier about getting that internship and landing. And that's, Romaine, what we're trying to do with Girls with Impact, is to create this network of opportunities so that these less underserved young women have a chance at getting access to internships and getting that first job.
I am curious, though, about the generational differences. I mean, obviously, job markets change. They've changed a lot since I came out. I'm a Gen Xer, technically. And we talk about sort of this new generation. I know some people have derided Gen Z, saying they just don't really respect the labor market the way that maybe we had to. But it's not so much an issue of respect. It's just their expectations for what they want out of their career and their lives. It's just going to be different. And I am curious as to how that syncs up with what corporations themselves are expecting out of entry-level workers these days.
Well, I think a lot of people, right, think that Gen Z doesn't have grit. They don't have the hustle. I think what's important to remember is that they have a very different definition of grit and hustle. To give you a sense, the typical Gen Zer is using AI twice a week in their job for productivity. That tells you something. But what we have to remember is that they're very strategic. A lot of them saw maybe their parents lose jobs, that the loyalty didn't pay off. They want purpose in their lives. They want an entrepreneurial impact, ideally, and they want to stretch themselves. And so the question is, what does this mean for corporate leaders? I think number one is, just like any other business case, is to connect the dots. And remember that this generation wants to be accountable. They want to feel ownership of something. And so what we even do with our own team is give them ownership, mentor them along the way. And I think what you'll find is they're much more capable than what we might think. In fact, of our generation, of course. And then the other is to remember that they want some purpose in their jobs. And so when you're hiring, don't hide the why in the job description. Make sure you talk about the role of the company, a sense of mission and purpose that connect to that young person's job.
I'm curious about the entrepreneurial side of this generation. There's been a lot of surveys and other sort of, I guess, anecdotal type of data that seems to suggest that this is a generation that definitely seems, or at least they feel like they need a much more entrepreneurial focus to their careers. And I'm wondering if we do see a lot of these folks bypass that traditional start at the entry level in a corporation and work your way up the ladder.
I think we definitely are seeing some of them go the entrepreneurial path. Some of them are in a traditional job and doing the entrepreneurial side gig. There is no question. I think the opportunity for business leaders actually is to harness that energy internally. One of the things that we are talking to large companies about is, can we bring our innovation academy inside to a company and allow these young people to innovate on the job? And so what does that accomplish? It helps with retention. It helps with potentially incubating some new ideas or helping clients in new ways that hadn't been imagined. So there are some ways to certainly leverage this young talent.
Obviously, you focus primarily on women, young women. And I am curious about where you see the environment right now in corporate America for women. We've talked a lot on this program over the years about what had been an expansion of leadership roles for women. And it feels, at least, and not just feels, but the data has shown that at least over the last couple of years, that growth has stalled just a bit.
Yeah, so women and men come into the workplace at 50-50 levels, right? And as we go up the ladder, we see fewer of them. Recent piece of data is that we see more women at the CEO level, just over 10%. But the side story there, Romaine, is that the women who are getting to the CEO slot generally held something like a president or a CEO position before that. One of the issues with women is that they don't always raise their hand for a job. Men tend to get promoted on a promise, women on performance. What does this mean? First off, huge economic impact that we're missing. So McKinsey even recently says, it's a $12 trillion untapped economic opportunity in the US because women are not realizing their full potential. And that's what GWI is trying to do. The other interesting piece of data is that that women are resisting the leader label.
Yeah.
And despite outperforming, they just don't see themselves as leaders in the workplace.
All right, Jen, we got to leave it there. Always appreciate talking to you and doing some really important work there. Her organization is called Girls with Impact. That's Jennifer Openshaw. She's the founder and chair there, helping to train the next generation of young women for the workforce.